First introduction. 1. Paraphrase the question. Instead of copying the prompt word for word, use synonyms and change the sentence structure. This shows the examiner you have a strong grasp of English. 2. Mention both maps and the time period. Your introduction must clearly state what is being compared. This usually involves identifying the location and the specific years or timeframes shown. The two maps illustrate the layout of Beechwood Farm in 1950 and its present-day configuration. Second overview. First, identify major changes and what remained unchanged. Analyze a subject to determine major changes. Identify what aspects have remained constant. Second, do not include numbers. Do not use numerical data in the analysis. Overall, while the core agricultural areas for fruit trees, soft fruits, and vegetables have remained unchanged, the farm has undergone significant development to support tourism and renewable energy. The former sheep grazing area has been replaced by visitor facilities, tracks have been upgraded to proper roads, and several new amenities have been introduced, including a farm shop, holiday cottages, a camping field, solar panels, and additional parking. Third body paragraph 1. Major changes in one area. In this paragraph, your goal is to zoom in on one specific part of the map, example, the northwest, the town center, or the riverside, and describe all the transformations that happened there. In this Spain 1950, the farm was divided by tracks forming a central triangular area. The northern section was used for sheep, while the southern plots along the river were dedicated to fruit trees, soft fruits, and vegetables. The farmhouse, barn, and chicken enclosure were located in the southeastern corner. Fourth body paragraph 2. Remaining changes and unchanged areas. In this specific structure, body paragraph 2 is designated for detailing the remaining changes that haven't been mentioned yet, as well as identifying what has stayed the same. Today, the crop cultivation zones, farmhouse, and chicken area remain in their original positions, with only a small farm shop added near the main road junction. The most noticeable changes are in the former sheep pasture, which now accommodates a camping field, an array of solar panels, and 2 parking areas. The original barn has been relocated to the center of the triangular zone, and its previous site has been converted into holiday cottages. First introduction. 1. Paraphrase the question effectively in your own words. Instead of copying the prompt word for word, which can lower your score, you should rewrite it using different vocabulary and sentence structures while keeping the original meaning. 2. Clearly answer questions that have been asked. In many essay prompts, there is a direct question, example, to what extent do you agree? Your introduction should contain a thesis statement that directly addresses this. 3. Do give your opinion if it has been asked and mention the reasons for that. If the prompt asks for your opinion, you must include it in the introduction. This is often part of your thesis statement. In numerous educational systems, schools traditionally observe an extended hiatus of 2 months or more during the summer period. While this protracted break is often championed as an indispensable phase of childhood, the question of whether such lengthy intervals yield genuine value remains a subject of intense pedagogical debate. Proponents argue that these breaks are essential for the holistic well-being of students and faculty alike, whereas critics contend that a more fragmented holiday schedule would better serve contemporary academic and familial requirements. Second body paragraph 1. Answer to question 1. 1. Opening statement. Clearly state that this paragraph addresses the first question. 2. Explain your points with reasoning. Explain your core point or argument in detail. Why is this your answer? 3. Provide a relevant example, real life, research, or logical reasoning. Example: bolster your reasoning with a concrete piece of evidence. This can be real life, a personal experience or current event. Research, a statistic, study, or expert quote. Logical reasoning, a if-then scenario that proves your point through common sense. The primary merit of an extended summer break lies in the profound opportunity it affords for cognitive rest and personal development. Following a rigorous academic year, students benefit immeasurably from a departure from the constraints of structured curricula and high-stakes assessments. This hiatus facilitates not only physical recuperation but also the pursuit of extracurricular passions and the cultivation of familial bonds. Furthermore, for educators, this period is vital for professional reflection and curriculum preparation for the ensuing year. From a broader perspective, long holidays enable families to engage in immersive travel or community projects that are logistically unfeasible during the term, thereby significantly broadening a child's cultural horizons. Third body paragraph 2. Answer to question 2. 1. Opening statement. Clearly state that this paragraph answers the second question. 2. Explain your points with reasoning. Provide the why behind your second answer. 3. Provide a relevant example, real life, research, or logical reasoning. Just like the first paragraph, provide a specific example, real life, research, or logic to make your argument more persuasive. Conversely, compelling arguments exist in favor of condensing these holiday periods. A paramount concern is the phenomenon of academic regression, where students, particularly those from marginalized socioeconomic backgrounds, lose a percentage of the literacy and numeracy gains achieved during the year. This disparity in summer learning loss can exacerbate existing educational inequalities. Additionally, the traditional long break often misaligns with the realities of modern professional life, placing a substantial logistical and financial strain on working parents who must secure costly childcare. Implementing shorter, more frequent intersessions throughout the year could potentially sustain academic momentum while providing a more predictable rhythm for the modern household. Fourth conclusion. 1. Start with a concluding expression. 2. Summarize the main points discussed in both body paragraphs. 3. Restate the key takeaways without adding new information. In conclusion, while the traditional summer holiday offers undeniable benefits regarding rest and experiential learning, it arguably presents significant challenges in terms of knowledge retention and parental pressure. As societal structures evolve, a transition toward a more balanced academic calendar, distributing breaks more equitably throughout the year, would likely optimize both educational outcomes and the functional needs of the community.
This is IELTS 20 Speaking Test 2 Part 1. First question. What's your favorite fruit?
Answer. Oh, definitely tangerines. They're the perfect combo of sweetness and tanginess, and they're super juicy when you peel them. Plus, the bright orange color is an instant mood booster for me. What appeals to me the most is that they're not as overpriced as other trendy superfruits these days, yet they're packed with vitamin C. That's why they've always been my go-to fruit.
Second question. Are there any kinds of fruit that you don't like eating?
Answer. Well, if you ask me, I'd say durian. I know it's widely known as the king of fruits and loved by many of my friends, but I just can't stand its pungent smell. It reminds me of rotting onions. The texture's even worse, it's like swallowing sweetened clotted cream mixed with stringy bits. Honestly, even durian-flavored candies freak me out.
Third question. Do you like eating cooked food that has fruit in it?
Answer. Personally, it's not my cup of tea. For example, in China there's a dish called pineapple poke which is a famous Cantonese dish. I've tried it a few times, but I just can't get used to the way warm, mushy fruit clashes with salty flavors. It feels wrong to me. If you ask my opinion, fruits are meant to be eaten raw to get their natural zing.
Fourth question. Where's the best place to buy fruit where you live?
Answer. If I'm in a rush, I'll just order fruit through grocery delivery apps. They'll leave it at my doorstep within an hour. But for better quality and prices, I go to a nearby wholesale market. The produce there is freshly harvested, and there's a much wider variety. Plus, I actually enjoy haggling with the vendors. It adds to the experience.
Now time for speaking part 2. Describe a time when you changed a plan you had made. You should say what your original plan was, why you changed it, what new plan you made, and explain how you felt about changing your plan.
Answer. Let me tell you about my snorkeling trip that got cancelled in Phuket last monsoon season. I mean, my original plan was this meticulously organized 3-day island hopping adventure, complete with underwater photography sessions and sunset cruises. Everything looked perfect, at least on paper. To be honest, the first day was excellent: turquoise waters, powdery beaches. Everything went swimmingly. Unfortunately, on day 2, Mother Nature threw a spanner in our plans. Out of nowhere, a tropical storm blew in, winds picking up like angry spirits. And then the rain started bucketing down mercilessly. Frankly, the waves became wild horses galloping across the sea. At that point, our boat captain called off everything, saying, "It never rains but it pours," which, in hindsight, was spot on. I slumped into disappointment, staring at my futile preparations. Had I known earlier, I'd have cancelled this trip altogether. Thankfully, here's the silver lining: our resort offered complimentary massage therapies. That said, the therapeutic experience proved magical, melting away resentment like ice in sunshine. What's more, over ginger tea, I swapped stories with globetrotters whose adventures made mine pale in comparison. Now, while snorkeling remains firmly on my bucket list, this detour taught me something crucial: life's best unplanned moments often arrive unexpectedly. In other words, when Plan A sinks, Plan B may come to your rescue. Hopefully next time, I'll remember this lesson when travel plans go sideways.
Now speaking, part 3. First question. What kinds of plans do friends make together?
Answer. Well, friends usually plan various leisure activities. They might go shopping, watch movies, or plan weekend getaways and concert outings. On top of that, they often engage in hobby-based stuff. For instance, they could join a hiking club, train for a marathon, or attend a painting workshop. Just as the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Moreover, friends also make elaborate plans to celebrate special moments. They might throw surprise parties for each other's birthdays, or organize themed gatherings to mark important milestones, such as graduations or job promotions.
Second question. Do you think it's better to discuss future plans with friends or with family?
Answer. It really depends. Generally speaking, friends tend to relate better to personal choices like career shifts or dating dilemmas. For example, if you're torn between settling down and focusing on your career, friends might give unbiased advice, whereas parents would probably push for marriage. That said, When it comes to major moves like relocating abroad, cutting off contact with your family isn't a wise option, as you need their support in many ways, such as practical input on visa arrangements, financial support, or even childcare help. At the end of the day, it's a balancing act.
Third question. When making plans for the future, is it important not to copy friends?
Answer. Well, definitely. To be honest, it's completely normal to get ideas from friends when planning ahead. I mean, seeing people you trust do something similar does give that initial sense of security. But the thing is, if we just mirror their choices without proper reflection, things can get messy quickly. Take degree choices, for instance. I've noticed that loads of students go into fields like marketing or computer science simply because their social circle does. The problem kicks in when they realize their strengths don't align with the coursework at all. You can imagine the stress that follows. That's why I firmly believe that when it comes to major life decisions, we should build plans around our natural talents and core values. After all, we're all wired differently.
Fourth question. When people are choosing what to study, how important is it that their course should lead directly to a career?
Answer. Well, that's a classic dilemma. Think about it. How many of us end up in jobs exactly matching our degree titles? Don't get me wrong. Career-driven degrees like engineering are gold for giving that quick start with their hands-on training and internships. But take philosophy graduates, for example. On paper, they seem job-ready for nothing specific. Yet some of them end up thriving in business or tech. I suppose the reason is that those abstract courses wire your brain to tackle problems in ways that no technical manual can teach. So ultimately, while job-specific skills get you through the door, it's the transferable skills that help you climb the career ladder.
Fifth question. Why is it a good idea to get some work experience before deciding on a future career?
Answer. Well, here's the thing about internships. They let you test the waters without signing your life away. Many young graduates switch tracks after realizing the fact that they don't really match their first career options. Additionally, no lectures or textbooks can teach you the messy stuff, like calming down a furious client or decoding your boss's cryptic emails. These are things you can only learn through real-world experience. Lastly, even the most mundane tasks, like making coffee runs and handling spreadsheets, can enhance your CV and help you stand out in the job market later on. Sixth question. How easy do you think it is for people to change from one career to another? Answer. To be honest, it's no walk in the park. As the saying goes, different fields are worlds apart. So, embarking on a brand new career means starting from scratch. You have to acquire new certifications, adapt to unfamiliar work cultures, and rebuild professional networks, all of which require dedication and willpower. But on the flip side, it's liberating. I've seen people thrive after escaping dead-end jobs. So yeah, it's tough but doable with grit.